So I've come to view court as a venue to do performance.
I mean, the amusing thing about that is that I've been visiting courts, and I encourage viewers, if you have any spare time during the day, to use it up wisely by enjoying live theatre put on free 5 days a week at a venue near you. And when you look at it as theatre, and what's astounding about the theatre is that the actors don't know that they're acting, although they actually say they're acting, like, you know, a barrister and a solicitor act on behalf of the client. When you look at it as a theatre, it really is an astonishing sight to see. So anyway, you were saying, interrupting you, were saying that for you, court is also, it's as if, like, if they can perform, then so can you.
No, it's not like that. I didn't choose to have to be going into courts. I didn't ask for this persecution. I own that somehow in my subconsciousness I brought it upon me, because that is my understanding of life. I create it as I go along. I ain't no victim. Nobody's a victim. Somehow I got myself into a vibrational state where I reflected that polarity at myself. And this court case goes back almost 2 years now, this incident that has caused almost 2 years of court case. And I have to go back to court next week still again over the same incident. And I will willingly surrender myself to the police, and they will willingly act accordingly and surrender me to a court. And I'll be put into the cells, so I'll have no option but to go into the dock, because the cell leads to the dock. I know this because I've been in the situation before where there was no way to get out of the dock, because it's a back door. But what I am is a bard. It takes 20 years to train, and I've been at this 22 years now. A bard can speak in a court. A bard is not subject to a court.
Is that in law?
Yes.
Where can one find that?
You can't.
Written.
It's been wiped out.
Right.
Specifically because that was the truth. That is the truth. People like me aren't supposed to exist anymore. There are no Druids in Britain. They were wiped out. We know this. We were taught history. There are no bards in Britain anymore. They were wiped out. Well, the Romans didn't wipe them out, because the Romans were only here for about 80 years and then they left. There's a man called Caricaturus. He's a British man. He and his whole family were taken hostage by the Romans. And funnily enough, his daughter married Claudius and was adopted by Emperor Claudius, and her name changed to Claudia. And as hostages they lived in a palace and were free to move about, and their palace became the main social centre in Rome from the time that they became hostages there. That's fascinating, isn't it? That's history. That's known history. I found that out from history books. But not many people know this. Such as not many people know about the myth of Joseph of Arimathea, and how that's what the royal families of Britain claim as being their right to divine rulership over Britain. It's also how they claim the greatest right of Christendom as a Christian nation. England is the most Christian nation in the world, is the premier Christian nation in the world, because Joseph of Arimathea and Jesus' son, they say, built a little church in Glastonbury, and they were granted 12 hides of land at Glastonbury, and that little wattle and daub church was the first above ground Christian church on the planet. So that makes Britain the preeminent Christian country in the world. And this was agreed hundreds of years ago. France tried to claim it, and Britain and France had a good fight over it. And then France's royal family got wiped out not long after that. So for a bard to speak in court again would defy history. And for a bard to win his freedom by speaking the word of truth in a court would also defy history. But for it to work, there needs to be cameras, and there needs to be eyewitnesses. So it needs to be a performance. It needs an audience. But when I met you first, Danny, I was talking about this stuff, and didn't I just happen to be about that thing at Birkenhead? And I not even knowing what the fuck it was or anything else. But something in my feeling and my intuition and my spirit guidance stuck me in Tara and Raga in a van and had us driven up there. And we were all nearly slaughtered in a car crash on the way up, and it missed us by about 3 millimeters in a third of a second. And as we drove on past it up the motorway, this jackknife lorry blocked all the traffic behind us and left a vacuum behind us, and we picked up the phone and rang 999 and reported that this big crash has just happened on the motorway. That's how close it was to stopping us from going up and commandeering a court, hijacking a court, jackknifing a court. But in Birkenhead, the stuff I spoke to you about when I first met you is what happened there. Enough people went into the court to witness it. Enough people went into the court to be able to film it. Enough people went into the court knowing that what they were going in there for was to say this whole thing is a scam. From the raw root of it, to just go for the jugular, not argue over petty this or that, not argue over rights and wrongs. Just to say from the very beginning, one message, this whole thing is a scam. And we learned the blueprint there. We learned that you have to seal the door into the court. We learned that you have to go to the door by the judge as well, and you have to seal that door too, otherwise police come in there with dogs and the judge can escape through that door. And you have to seal the door that leads into the dock. If you don't seal those 3 doors, then no matter that you have 30 or 50 people in the court, the police will bring in hundreds or thousands if it's needed to get those 50 out of the court and try and erase that whatever happened was happening. So next time that these things happen, everybody out there in Danny's YouTube channel, next time that these things happen, which is any time that we organise for 50 of us to go to any of our court cases and ask the judge, Judge, have you got your oath with you today? Are you here to defend the land? Or are you here to extract taxes? Because if the judge doesn't have his oath to defend the land with him, then he is quite free and at liberty within the legal system to simply extract taxes. And Jesus said, apparently, in the Bible, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, which I would translate legally means, if you get caught for a fine, you should just pay it. If you get caught going through a red light, you should pay an £80 fine. That's what Jesus said you should do. Well, that's not the Jesus that I know. But the end, the Jesus I know is a Christ, not a fake. The Jesus I know we called Isa, which is to do with the wisdom of Salmon. Nothing to do with Jesus, who's to do with Zeus, who's to do with Greek gods and other stuff. But